Okay, here's the notes for this lesson, the notes. Hopefully you printed this out. I provided a copy of these 3 examples that we're going to go over for these curves, right? So they're already graphed for you. And you're just going to have to be able to just identify 3 things. What curve it is it sine or is it cosine? Is it a positive sign? Is it a negative sign? Is it a positive cosine? Is it a negative cosine? And then what's the amplitude? And then what's the period? Okay, so notes. So hopefully if you have a printer, you can print this paper out, a worksheet like this, a blank one that I provided, and you can follow along here for the notes. Okay. So first let's name this curve. Is this I'll put it up here. Is this a sine curve, cosine curve? Well, it's not going through 0, 0. Remember sine goes through 0, 0. So this is obviously a cosine curve, right? Well, this is cosine, but you got to also determine if it's positive or negative. Well, if it's on the positive, it's a positive cosine. So positive cosine. Okay, second thing, the amplitude. Amplitude is the distance or the height that it's oscillating from the midline. Here's the midline. Right now it's the x-axis. How much is it going up and under? The same amount. How much is that? Well, that's your amplitude. So obviously it's 1, right? It's just going 1 over, 1 under. The amplitude is always a positive value. The amplitude is 1 for this graph. So we know it's cosine, we know it's a cosine curve, we know the amplitude is 1, and now you got to look at the x-axis and you got to see what the period is. Remember, the definition of period is how long it takes for this wave or this curve to complete 1 cycle. So you have to understand what is the definition of 1 cycle. This is 1 cycle right there. So it kind of starts here on this top, and then it's going to go under and around, and where it comes right back to that top, right? Another way I've been explaining it, right? And then obviously this pattern's going to repeat. It'll do another one. It'll do another one like this. It'll do another period, another cycle. That's a different period, right? Another way that I've been explaining it is kind of think of the 2 halves. Here's the bottom half. And the top half for cosine, well, you don't see the top half like sine, but you'll see these 2 halves. So how long did it take, or what's the period here? What's the distance it's taken to complete 1 cycle? Right there. So here the period is 2 for this graph. Okay. All right, let's look at the second one. Here's the second one here. And let's identify the curve first. What curve is this? Well, it is going through 0, 0. It is going through 0, 0, so that is a sine curve. But don't go away just yet. Is this a positive sine curve or a negative sine curve? It does start and it goes through the origin 0, 0, but is it going up? If it's going up and then over like this, it's positive. Well, this one's not. It's under. It starts down first, so this is a negative sine curve. It's a negative sine curve. The amplitude. Well, we look at these high and low points right here. What is this distance that it's going high like this and under like this? That's the amplitude, right? From the midline, here's the middle line right here. For right now, it's the x-axis. So obviously the amplitude is 4. It's oscillating. It doesn't go any higher than 4. It doesn't go any under than -4. The amplitude is 4. And then again, the period. Here's where you will see one bottom half and one top half. So the amount of time it takes for it to complete, or the distance it takes for it to complete one cycle, is the period. One cycle is the period, where it's going to come around under and over, and it's going to start here right back at this point and kind of continue to repeat the pattern. So this is one period. And what's the distance it takes for it to complete one period? Well, for this one, it's 4 pi. So here, the period for number 2 is 4 pi. And again, you just read all of this off of the graphs, right? You can tell which curve it is, you can see the amplitude, and just depending on the curve, and then your understanding of what one cycle or one period is, we'll just read it off the x-axis. Okay? All right, last one. Last one here. This one here. What curve is this? Well, let's see. Is it going through 0, 0? Yes, it's going through 0, 0. So obviously this curve is it's a sine curve, but is it positive or negative? Well, this one is starting up, and then so it starts up, so it's positive. It's a positive sine curve. What's the amplitude that it's going high, the highest and lowest point? Well, 2. Amplitude is 2. And finally, the period. Well, let's follow this. Starting here, it's going to go up once and under once. And how long does it take to come around, complete that one cycle, and then it's going to kind of start again and repeat that same cycle? Well, here's my top half. Here's my bottom half. So what's the period for this one? Well, obviously it takes what? Period is pi. That's how long it takes for it to complete a cycle, pi. And that's what you have to be able to read off these graphs. That's it, very simple, okay? This one, the period is pi. Okay, that is it. Easy assignment. All right, go ahead and do the work.